Welcome to episode 7 of the Better Man podcast, and today's an absolute cracker. I've got legendary Pete Cohen in the house. Pete Cohen has been a life coach on GMTV, he's a motivational, inspirational speaker, he's a high performance coach and worked with people such as Gunnell, Ronnie O'Sullivan and Arsenal Football Club. There's loads of insight, load of wisdom in here, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
And we are live. Okay, so I'm really excited about today. I've got the legendary Pete Cohen in the house. So if you don't know Pete Cohen, he's a legendary speaker. He's published 17 books, been a life coach on TV, been on GMTV, and been a performance coach as well to Ronnie O'Sullivan, Sally Gunnell, and many, many more, and Arsenal football team I was reading as well. So if people don't know you, Pete, just elaborate on a little bit more on who you are and how you've got to where you are today.
Well, first off, Danny, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you and to reach out to the people that follow you, because obviously I'm fully aware of the work that you do. And I think it's really inspiring, helping people have ultimately what they want. And I'm pretty much like you. I am someone who's obsessed with solutions and helping people kind of create the life they want, to create a life not by chance, but basically by design. So I've got a similar background to you in terms of physiology. I was a personal trainer for many years, an aerobics instructor, but it didn't take me very long to work out that people were having some serious issues in the way that they were thinking, which has put me down a different road, a different path of studying psychology and reading psychology and just always looking for answers and solutions for things. So like you, I know that you're heavily into tracking to see the progress that people are making. I'm just obsessed with, okay, what works? And if someone's got this problem, what is it that they need to do? Trying to figure things out. So yeah, I love what I do, again, like you. And I feel like I'm only just getting started. I'm 50 in a couple of weeks, so which I still can't believe. I'm just ready to take things to another level.
Awesome. Well, look, we've got loads of stuff that we're going to run through today. And I think lots of value and content that can actually help a lot of people. And I want to start because obviously we're in, what day is that? April 23rd. And we're in this unprecedented time. We're in this uncertainty and this panic and this fear. And at the moment, a lot of people will be struggling with negative internal dialogue. And they'll have a negative kind of thought pattern. Well, what is the first thing that people can do when they're in this process to kind of step out, to become more mentally resilient and to actually gain a little bit more control? Because it's so hard. They could listen to this podcast right now and go, I'm motivated, I get it. But then they kind of slip back into old patterns or old beliefs. What can they do?
Well, first off, it's a good question. And it's like opening Pandora's box. Where do you go with a question like that? Because I suppose ultimately, why do people talk to themselves in the first place? And I think that we talk to ourselves basically to protect ourselves. But there's always more than one voice. So, when we talk about things like schizophrenia, which is obviously a severe medical disorder, disease, there's multiple voices going on inside the head. But for most of us, it's two, right? There's like one voice that's kind of telling you to stay where you are, and another voice that's telling you to move forwards. And I suppose most people don't change when we tell them what to do, right? Real change happens when our perspective changes. So it'd be good to give people a different perspective of why they say what they say to themselves. And I think most of that is to do with, there's a part of us that just wants us to stay where we are. If you think about our forefathers, they fought for us to have the lives that we have, whether they were fighting off something that was attacking them or that to go and fight something for us to actually eat. And we are kind of go against our nature when we decide to actually create a better life for ourselves, because we are settlers. We're not hunter-gatherers anymore. We settle. So why strive for anything? But what's really fascinating, Danny, about human beings is when bad things happen, that it puts people in a position where that's often when we get to see the best in people. So I used to live in a place called Ladbroke Grove. I used to live on a houseboat. And there was a massive fire in the Grenville Towers, which many people remember. It was broadcast all over the world. I woke up not by the noise, but by the smell. My very large nose was probably, it picked up the scent before most people. And then I went out and I could see what was going on. And I knew people that lived there and they didn't even talk to each other. But that situation forced people into a position where what they said to themselves didn't make any difference, because there was a necessity to act that bypassed that interference. Because for most of us, our dialogue is a bit of interference. It's what we said to ourselves yesterday. It's what we said to ourselves last week. And, in answer to your question, when we're faced with situations like this, a few people rise up and go, right, well, I'm going to make something out of this situation. I'm going to do something. I'm going to help others. Whereas a lot of others, they retreat into a place of fear. And fear is, as we well know, fear, stress, worry, doubt, anxiety, is a place that when we go into that space, we're not open. We are closed. We close down like an animal that's being chased. It will run away, and basically it's not open. So I suppose ultimately, as you said, the first step is that awareness, to be able to back off and actually see what's going on. And a good thing about the current situation, it is making a lot of people just rethink, reevaluate, reshape, reform. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to reset and ask lots of questions, like the questions I'm sure we're going to be asking, because there's going to be huge opportunities here for people to redesign the way they move through the world.
100%. So the first step then really is obviously to gain more awareness. And I was actually watching one of your lives the other day, and you was asked a really good, you ask a lot of really good questions that can really help people. And I think one of the questions was, if you went back 5 years, can you talk a little bit about that 5-year question? Because I think that's a really good, powerful question to get people moving from where they're at.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? When you think about if you could go back 5 years in the past, and then you could look at where you are now, are you where you wanted to be 5 years ago? And most people would say no. If they were being honest, most people, are you where you want to be with your health? Probably not. Are you where you wanted to be with your work, your wealth? Are you where you want to be with your relationships? Probably no. And that information can do one of two things, right? It can make people think, well, I'm not, and there's nothing I can do about it, right? Or some people go, that's interesting. And then if you get to work with someone, a coach or a mentor, which I personally believe everybody needs coaching and mentoring. It's just stupid to think that you could achieve anything in life of any significance on your own, and actually most of what we produce, if we are high performers in some way, we're performing and making something for the benefit of others. We need others. And there's nothing better than when you work with someone to start working through those questions, which again, I know that's what you're all about. It's like, well, you want to perform better. What is it that you're currently doing? What's in the way? What is it that you want? And then designing some sort of plan so that history doesn't repeat itself. And again, I know the age range of the people that you work with. A lot of people, as they get into their 30s, 40s, 50s, they start to play the accepting game. Like, this is just how it is. No. We can live a very, very long life if we choose to be active in our well-being. And let's face it, we live in a world now that is awesome, but we don't really have to do very much. We can be incredibly passive. But the more passive we are, I think the more uncomfortable, the more pain we eventually will end up experiencing, how tired we start to get. We just don't realize it's happening until we get help,
I think that's so true. Because a lot of, let's say, guys or girls that are listening to this, they may have tried to lose a little bit of weight, or they might have tried to grow a business, and every time it's just kind of not gone their way, or it's not kind of got to where they want to be or what they expected. So they kind of lose that little bit of belief. So what do they need to do now to kind of move forward? Because they've got a lack of belief because it's failed so many times in the past. So how can they move forward? Is that by reaching out and having someone to guide and support them and mentor them and show them the vision?
Yeah.
Or what would you advise for that person?
Again, you got me thinking now, right? Because there's a guy I follow who I've gone to hear speak a few times. His name is Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Oh, I've been on one of his seminars. It was amazing.
Yeah, no, the guy is just, he's unreal. I mean, he's really into the science of things, and I've learned a lot from him. But one of the things which I actually heard him say, I was just listening to something he said today about, if you're not driven by a compelling vision of the future, basically you will keep recreating the past. So, you know, what so many of us do is we start again with something, hoping that it will work, but we don't identify with the result. We don't identify, even more importantly, the person that we want to become. And the real transformation often isn't what we produce, it's what we change inside. In fact, this morning I was talking to someone I work with about my ideal client. I don't know what your ideal client is, but probably similar, right? My ideal client is someone who wants to create, someone who just wants to do something. They've got stuff they want to do, you know? And I don't mean just like doing the garden. I'm talking about people that want to experience life fully. They don't just want more money. They want to be here for a long time, experiencing life to the best of their ability. They want freedom. They want peace. They want to be inspired. They want, those are the ultimate currencies, right? But for those currencies to manifest, having a vision of what something is going to be, like seeing it, identifying with it, that to me is essential. So in answer to your question, a lot of people, it's like, well, you might be going to try and do something again, but you're going to do it again with the same mindset, the same energy that is behind it, that is, you're just going to repeat unless you do something differently. And I suppose what that different thing has to be in this first point is a different vision of what that's going to be, if that makes sense. Some of this stuff is very hard to articulate because, you know, I'm trying to think of so I'll give you an example, right? So you mentioned Sally Gunnell. So a lot of your listeners are probably too young to remember her, but she won a gold medal in 1992 in Barcelona, 400-meter hurdles. She broke the world record in 1993.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was a great athlete and she always wanted to be better, but her success really had a lot to do with the people around her. She had a group of people who all supported her, and we all need support, right? And she met someone, you know, success is always leaves clues. So if you found someone who's had the success that you want, go and speak to them and ask them questions. So she reached out to a guy called David Hemery, who won gold in 1968 in the same event. And I said, you know, David, you know, what did you do? And he just said to Sally, do you ever visualize? Do you ever think about yourself winning? And Sally said, sometimes, but she said, you know what? Sometimes I do, and I don't actually see myself winning. And she says, it puts me off, so I don't do it. Right. And then David Hemery said, Sally, if you want to win gold in Barcelona, you need to really start thinking about this. You really need to start picturing and identifying with the person that you're becoming. Identify with the person that you're becoming. So, you know, we come from an umbilical cord, right? We are connected to our mothers. Many of us are still connected to our mothers, and our mothers are dead. You know, there's that strong bond. Having that same kind of strong bond with the person that you identify with. Athletes, great athletes, they do this. They're obsessed by it. There's a documentary series right now about my hero, Michael Jordan. And, you know, he was obsessed with getting better and being the best person that he could be. So, and I encourage all of your listeners to go and watch on YouTube, Sally Gunnell, 1993, because she was really good and won gold in 92, but in 93, she carried on doing it, right? It's not something you just do and stop. That's why many athletes, when they retire, they struggle because they don't have something else where they can use the same energy, the same creation to make something happen. Many of them get depressed. But if you watch her in 93, she wasn't very well. She had a cold, but she was able to still put herself into a state where, you know, I'm ready. We made a TV program about this. This is why I know this story so well. And then obviously I've worked with her, so I've spoken to her about it. When you watch her, when she crosses the line, she didn't know that she'd won. She had no idea.
Really?
People thought she was being a bit cocky. She just didn't know. She's walking around. And then she realizes that she's won. And she jumps up and as if like jumps out of the trance that she was in. But what's even amazing is that she then realized she'd broken the world record and then starts doing the same thing again. The reason I tell you this is it's what people call visioneering. And you know, Jim Carrey is someone who talks a lot about this. He was on Graham Norton I think last year, telling that story that people have heard him say when he was on Oprah about, you know, he wrote himself a check for $10 million for services rendered, even when he was nobody.
Yeah.
So we can all dream, but if we don't dream, then we just keep recreating what happened before. And for most of us, what happened before, a lot of it was a bit of a nightmare. You know,
it's so difficult as well, isn't it? Because like you say, if to think and act and feel greater than currently how you feel is very difficult. To imagine that you're going to achieve the body that you want or the business that you want when you're in panic, fear, uncertainty, doubt, nothing's going your way. But I mean, I can remember listening to watching Conor McGregor's documentary, and he had no money. He had nothing, but he kept saying, "I'm going to be the world champion. I'm going to be the UFC champion," and to keep thinking that way, even when he's at the lowest, is so impressive to do on a daily basis. But this is what people, if they want to get the body, or they want to get the energy, they want to get the well-being, they want to get the business, they've got to start thinking greater than they currently feel, haven't they?
Yeah, and again, that's something that, you know, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about. When I read that book, you know, I've got a few of his books, but the one, You Are the Placebo, I always found the whole thing about placebos fascinating. It's like, really? You could give someone a pill that's got nothing in it, but the person thinks that, even people who know it's a placebo, that's been shown to be effective, you know, and that's the power of belief. But then you could, you know, the better studies have been done where people thought it was something, and their brain is basically telling their body that it's something, and then the body does what it's supposed to do to make the body better. It's like, well, how does that apply to us? Well, basically a belief is something you see, right? So if I say, you know, Danny, do you believe you're a man? It's like, well, yeah. Well, how do you know?
Yeah.
But now you probably be picturing yourself, right? And you say, well, yep, I know I'm a man. You know, that's one thing you say, yeah, I'm definitely a man, you know? And we all can choose our beliefs. And many of us believe things in a way that we believe we're not good enough. We believe we don't have what it takes. We believe we don't have time. And to figure this all out, because ultimately we're living in a world where the game of living in the world is that we're all playing is we have to conform to certain systems. We have to pay our taxes. We have to do the right thing. But the world is really sped up. So many of us are on this kind of treadmill where we feel, even the BBC News app, it says, you know, for the news if you're in a hurry. So you'd watch that, whether you like it or not, and think, shit, I'm in a hurry. But it's kind of a world that has gone a bit mad. And it's no surprise that we are feeling emotion that is not nourishing, and but the way we change how we feel is definitely change the way that we think. And that takes what some people will call mindfulness, or your ability just to as you said right at the beginning, to back off so you can see what you're doing to yourself. And it's only if you see what you're doing to yourself that you'll realize ultimately you have choices. Because the difference between you and me and that acorn that falls from that tree is that acorn has to rely on nature for nature to let that happen. The kitten that becomes a cat relies on instinct. Humans, we're so different. We need instinct and we need nature, but we need to make some really good choices. And we're the only animals that our lives really, really depend on the choices that we make. And we need to wake up and realize, where are my choices taking us? And some people, maybe they don't care. You know, they're living for today. But I don't know about you. I said this morning. I'm living for tomorrow, today. You know, so I want to make sure that what I do today is going to make sure that tomorrow, I don't always get it right. You know, who does? You know?
I think the good thing right now, though, I mean, we can see the opportunity in this. Like you said, we can take, the world stopped a little bit right now. Everything's slowed down a little bit. So if we can actually start to see the opportunity in this and start to put certain practices in place, I think that can help us massively.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because a lot of people right now, they'll, like you say, they're waking up and they're feeling the same, thinking the same. They're a little bit down, a little bit. Have you got any practices that you use for yourself or that you use for your clients to either change their state or to get them moving in the morning? Or what are a few things that you recommend to guys?
Again, I mean, none of this would come to you as any surprise. My coach said to me years ago, he said, every time you go to sleep, it's a miniature death, right? Basically, you're dying, and then you wake up in the morning and you're reborn and you go again, right? So every day is a new day. But if we don't wake up every single day and really decide how that day is going to go, then most people just go into reacting mode. So it's about creation. You know, we can create. So start the day on the right foot. For most people, it needs to be ritualistic. In fact, I wrote on the board back there the 7 steps to this morning about being unstoppable. And the first step is about making new choices.
Yep.
And then the second step is doing something with those choices, you know, actually implementing them to the point where you repeat them, and then you get them into some sort of ritual, some sort of, you know, routine, and then you get some form of momentum, and then you become unstoppable. But if you look at anyone who's successful, they are pretty ritualistic in what they do. So for me, it's got to be come down in the morning. First thing I do is I will drink some water. You know, I don't always feel like doing it, but how I feel has got nothing to do with it, really. And that's a massive, massive thing that, you know, maybe we can talk about. We're just relying on our feelings all the time. Well, your feelings don't want to really take you anywhere. They want everything brought to you. So, you know, drink water. We have a journal that we use with our clients. And the first thing is bust out your journal. Start writing down, you know, again, gratitude has been proven to evoke emotion that just puts you in a space of creation, right? Yeah. So write that down. Whatever you choose to do. For me, I just want to learn something. So I'll listen to something or read, mainly listen, make notes, just so I feel, and then write down what have I learned. I find the best way to learn is to teach. Then I'll find a way to take what I've learned and teach it to someone if they'll listen. Then I will meditate. And then I'll either exercise then, but normally recently I've been broadcasting every day at 7 a.m. So I've been doing it after that. Yeah. And then I'm ready for the day, because the day is coming and I'm going to have to react to some of the stuff that's going on. But I want to, first off, I don't want to react. I want to create. So I bookend my day. And at the end of the day, you know, I'll just go back and spend a few minutes to review. But it's boring. You know, it's boring. It's mundane. It's not sexy. But you know what? It's a cliche. The mundane leads to the sublime. You know, over time, when you've invested in yourself, you don't realize just how far you've come. But I'm sure your clients, you know, they come back to you and say, you know what, I can't believe just how amazing I feel and how I was living my life for so long, because so many people don't know better until they do better, and doing better over time brings about the compound effect that all of a sudden you become unrecognizable to yourself.
100%. And that's why I love what you said there, because everything that I try and build in, and I say to my clients, this is going to be boring. There's no sexy stuff here, but you've got to repeat this every single day. And when they start repeating the journaling and they start doing the grateful log and they start moving every single day, they start tracking all their data, which we'll get into in a minute. Yeah. But when they do that every single day for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, that builds up over time. Yeah. And before they know it, their health's changing, their business is growing, they're performing better, they're sleeping better, and they're feeling so good. And one thing that, obviously, I've seen you with your Michael Jordan top on this morning in live, and one of the biggest things that I kind of followed, and I know he's passed away, but like I used to listen to Kobe Bryant stuff, and Kobe Bryant about his Mamba mentality, and he would get up at 4:30. He'd get up at 4:30 and he'd be the first one in the gym. And he'd be the last one out, and just hearing that, and he'd do the same thing every day, but he'd just add more intensity to it.
Did you hear at the memorial service, you know, Jordan basically got up and spoke, and I didn't know this, right? But Jordan met Kobe Bryant, and there's a real brotherhood amongst a lot of basketball players. In fact, when Jordan stopped playing basketball and took up baseball, his father was murdered. He'd spent, I think, 7-8 years at the Bulls, and they won the NBA 3 years on the trot, and he stepped away, and everyone thought he was crazy. He wanted to play baseball. So he played for a minor league baseball team. He didn't make it as a baseball player, and he ended up coming back to play basketball. They'd already retired his shirt, 23, so he wore 45 for the rest of the season. They got to the playoffs. They didn't win. But what was amazing was when he came back, he was making the film Space Jam, and he asked a lot of the NBA players who played for different teams to come and help him get better, while in the mornings before he started filming the film in the afternoon. And that was the brotherhood of, hey, can I help you? What do you need? And that also that paying it forwards, because this isn't all about us being the best that we can be. It's about us being the best that we can be so we can serve other people better, our friends, our family. But what's so fascinating about Jordan is that he met Kobe Bryant, and Kobe, he said, look, if I can help you, Kobe, feel free to reach out to me. Kobe Bryant reached out to him all the time, sent him messages in the middle of the night asking, what do you think about this? How should I do that? And Jordan would make fun of him, but really, really looked out for him. And that's, again, I think that gives another spin. You might think this is boring and mundane, to take care of yourself, but we're living in a world that we're not really designed to live in this world. We're not designed to sit in these chairs, all day. We're not designed to have these lights on us. We're designed still to, pretty much live in a harsh world, but we're not in that world. So I don't know whether you ever come across Joe DeSana, who's the founder of Spartan Races. I'm a big fan of him. He's one of my heroes because, I heard him say, I've been interviewed by him a few times, which has been great. They've got a podcast as well. But that whole thing of, this is why we train, right? We train for things like the COVID virus so that when it comes, we're ready. We're in a good shape to deal with this stuff. We need to be mentally strong, physically strong. Otherwise, what's the point of training? I think we're training for what's coming, and what's coming is opportunity. We need to be ready for that, but also difficulties coming. It's a lot easier to deal with difficulty, isn't it? When you're sharp,
100%. And that's why I'm loving your lives as well every morning, and showing that you're actually leading, like I've been doing with my guys, doing more lives, doing more content. And actually I'm going through like a 60-day sprint to excellence myself, where I'm pushing myself, pushing my boundaries, because I want to show my clients and my world, look, this is what you can do. Even though we're in this uncertain time, even though we've got all this shit going off in our outer world, let's focus on what we've got in here. Let's focus on our inner self. Let's put better habits in place. Let's put better routines in place. And that's why I feel it's important. And that's why I've loved your lives this week, because you've just been leading and been showing, look, I'm showing up every single day. I don't care if I'm knackered, I've not been sleeping, I'm showing up every single day.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been really interesting because for years, for literally, I don't know, at least 3 years, every day I broadcast at 7 a.m. pretty much every single day. And I was getting up at 4 and, going to bed sometimes at night. And I've been getting up at 4 recently. But what I've noticed over the last few weeks is I'm really tired. And I've actually noticed that my joints in my feet are hurting me a bit. And I know why. It's just because I'm not getting enough sleep.
Yeah.
And I'm stopping doing every day at 7, because I'm going to put myself first. I'll do it once a week and, I'll do other lives. But I know I need more sleep. And as sleep is, just try not sleeping and see how long you can go for. We can go without food and water for a good few days, I know people that have fasted for 40 days, I wouldn't choose to do that, but some people would. It's just fascinating. Sleep is really where it's at. That's where everything regenerates. That's where everything resets.
Well, look, obviously, I know you've worked with a lot of athletes. You've worked with a lot of athletes in the past. You've worked with CEOs, and you've done talks to big companies. Now, what was your role with working with these people? Like, how did you support them? Was it that you helped them obviously keep the peak performance at a certain level, or was it you helped them with? What was your role with working with these people? And usually,
so it all depends, right, on everyone who's different.
Yeah,
I was just actually talking to someone today who's interested in working with me, and it's like I'm like again, short like you, just very curious as to what's going on, and you listen. You've got to listen to when people talk, and be curious about what's going on here, because as a coach, your role is to take someone from where they are to where they want to be.
Yeah.
Right, and then look at what the obstacles that is in that person's way. So diagnostics, just kind of looking. But possibly one of the most interesting people I ever worked with was Ronnie O'Sullivan. I spent 2 years working with him, and he's 5-time snooker world champion. And he came to me because he was not in a good way. And most people come to me because they're not in a good way. Very few people come to me because things are going really well and they want to get better, which is always fascinating, right? Most people go to the doctor. Well, everyone goes to the doctor because they've got a problem. They don't go to the doctor and go, hey,
Well.
doctor, I'm feeling great. Can you help me feel better? No, because the doctors wouldn't even know what to do. They'd say, go away, because I'm not here to make you well. I'm here to not make you sick. And if we want to be well, that's why you've got to see people like us, right? I mean, because we're obsessed with how good and how great things can be. So it really all depends on the individual. But for someone like Ronnie, what he needed was a few things. He needed some techniques, definitely. And I worked with him and he won 3 tournaments back to back, which he'd never done before. And then in the World Championships of that year, he lost in the first round, made a 147, earned 200,000 pounds, but went on a big bender. He actually blamed me for that bender. Yeah, because I'd spent enough time with him and I said to him, I don't think that you're, an alcoholic. But I was naive. I thought alcoholics were people that behaved a certain way with alcohol. But no, some alcoholics don't drink very often. But when they do, they'll kill it. They'll cane it, which is what he was like. So I learned a big lesson from that. And he learned a big lesson from it as well. But the reason I'd say that's why we have to be careful sometimes about what we say, because we don't know all the answers. But the thing that he needed more than anything else, he had a lot of people around him. And I remember saying to him, Ronnie, who are all these people? And he was basically said, well, they're people I'm looking out for. I said, Ronnie, mate, Roger Federer does not have a whole lot of people that he's looking out for. He does, but they're not in his inner circle when he's going out to, mate, seriously, you need to think about the fact that you're thinking about them when you're performing. So that was a big change that he made. Making exercise he credits me for that massively in terms of getting him back into the regime of just running and being strong. But really it was just being there for him. Being there for him, he was someone who would be consistent, someone who would listen to him, someone who would just, and everybody I think most people need that, someone who they can confide in. Because we all need help, right? We can't always see what's going on in here. We can't always make sense of what's going on in here. And that's why I believe when they say behind every great person, there's another person. And there is. And then there's another person and there's another person. And then, I don't know whether I'll send you this, but I'm really happy with something that was just been produced. There's a YouTube channel called Motivational, and they've just started producing some of my content. And one came out yesterday. I think it's called something Hero. And I'm really into heroes and people becoming heroes in their own life. And they've made this beautiful film. It's like me talking for 10 minutes about why we love Lord of the Rings, why we love all these different films, Wizard of Oz, Matrix, Harry Potter. And they've used Rocky. I said when I was talking, I said, Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4. And they show little clips. He actually said to me, the guy, we've played it really close to the edge of being in trouble for using too much footage. I've downloaded it anyway, so I can show it. But the reason I say that is I want people to look at their life as an epic adventure. We love films. We identify with the characters. But this is our film, right? You and I have come together in our film. You're on a mission. I'm on a mission. Could we come together? And actually, I'm sorry just to keep talking, but I'm kind of on one here. It isn't the coffee, right? If you look at the films that are really popular right now, those superhero films, they're all collaborations. In fact, when I came down the stairs, because just before we came on, my wife asked me to help with something, and I knocked a picture off the wall, and it's not broken, thank God. It's a superhero with the Avengers, Thor, Iron Man, Captain America. These guys are all coming together because you think you're strong on your own. Who would Batman be without Robin? It's this whole thing of who's supporting who. And I think the world is ready for this. It's called co-laboring, collaborating. How can I help you? What do you need? So when you put this podcast out, you'll tell me, and I'll tell everyone, you need to listen to this. Why? Well, as much as I've been talking, people should listen to you.
100%. I've got 2 things what you've just mentioned and I want to touch on. Number one, what is your mission moving forward? Like over the next, you just sparked up when you said something then. And who are your heroes as well? Like who have you got like for me every morning, like I've got this little thing where it sounds really strange, but I say, well, what would Dwayne Johnson do? Because Dwayne Johnson's like my idol. I'm like, look, what would Dwayne do? Oh, Danny, you don't feel like doing this live, or Danny, what would Dwayne do?
Yeah.
Dwayne would do this. So what's your mission and who's your hero?
So my mission has been changed recently, just from, again, talking with someone who's really helped me. And my mission is basically, I'm building a global revolution. If I want to impact 10 million people around the world who go from a life of chance, I want to design my life. And that doesn't mean I have to help them. I could pass them your way and you could help them, but that's still fulfilling my mission, because it's not about me. You know, it's all about me, but it's not about me. You know what I mean? It's like, I need to be a good example to myself and to others, but I just want to help people live life, because I think life is so much sweeter when you own it. You know, you did it. So my heroes, well, obviously Jordan, you know, I've got a picture of Jordan over there. I've got a picture of Bruce Lee over there. My coach, who's not here anymore, who I worked with for 16 years, I've got paintings that he did here. My wife, you know, before we came on here, you know, my wife was given 18 months to live. In fact, I remember when we met at that event that Dr. Rakowski did, you know, out of terrible things, great things can happen. So I would not know you if my wife, this is the truth. I promise you, I would not be doing this with you. Well, we might be, but it's unlikely.
Yeah.
Because I met you through that event through Dr. Rakowski. How did I meet Dr. Rakowski? When we were in Houston, when my wife was being treated for her brain tumor. And my coach actually saved my wife's life, because I called him and asked him what to do. And he said, find people that are still alive with the same brain tumor and find out why. And then he said, what is she going to do when she gets better? And I said, but she's only been given 18 months. And he went, so what? People defy the odds all the time. You defied the odds in being born. You know, you don't have to buy into data and stats just because someone's telling you that. But anyway, we were in Houston, and then we wanted her to see a nutritionist, and we saw Dr. Rakowski, who's probably one of the greatest sports nutritionists in the world. And I don't know why you asking me about my hero. So my wife I wasn't even that keen on her. We weren't married when she became sick.
Is she going to listen to this?
She has heard me say that before. But I fell in love with her going through this process of going through something really difficult and then coming out the other side. So I feel quite weird about this coronavirus. I've realized myself that minor crises are always a catastrophe to me, but a big crisis, let's get on with it. Let's do something. You know, it's like I was made for shit like this, you know? I don't know whether it's in my DNA, from my ancestry, you know, what my ancestors went through, coming from the Jewish tribe of people that have been, you know, tried to be wiped out many times. I don't know what it is, but it's like, I don't know what it is, but I'm like, and it's sad that people have to die because of what's happening. But ultimately, hopefully some good will come out of all of this, and people will really start to appreciate what's important. And obviously one of those things being our immune systems that are heavily compromised by the way that we're living our life. And, you know, I think it's 90% of people that are dying of this disease, as we know at the moment, have underlying health conditions. So let's stop compromising our livelihood and our health, and let's get into the swing of being healthy and being the best that we can be.
And what do you think that, obviously that major event as well that happened for you, obviously with your wife, do you think that massively shifted? I just want to go back to that a minute. Do you think it massively shifted your perspective on how you view things, and it tracked, like, you before that event until after that event? Do you think you changed massively after that?
Massively. I was a bit of a fraud in terms of many of the things I was saying and doing. So
really,
you always tell people to think of the future, but I never thought of the future. It wasn't that I was running away from the past so much, but I suppose I was to a certain extent, you know, thinking that I'm not good enough and thinking that I needed to be accepted and appreciated. I used to really hate that question when someone would say, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? I was going, you know, I want to live for today, but I think it was mainly because I was scared and I had never really thought about it. So when my coach said to me, what is your wife going to do when she gets better? I didn't actually say that to my wife until 3 years afterwards. And when I asked her that, what are you going to do now? She started crying because she didn't have you know, if you'd been told you're going to die, you very rarely would you think, right, I'm going to be happy. We're going to get married. We're going to have children. We're going to do this. This is where we're going to live. You know, to go into fantasy land, which most people never do anyway, or they do, but they never then actualize what they see or go to work on it. And that was a big wake up call for me, because then I realized, oh, shit, you're not the only one. I don't do that either. So that's what we started to do. What some people call it, you know, visioneering, because everything that exists that man has created has been created twice, right? First in our heads and then in reality. This is the easy bit. The challenge is manifesting something that you've seen in your head, because if you're going to build something, you're going to come up against obstacles, right? That's life.
I think that's massively, like I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, but massively why you need a coach and a leader and a mentor to obviously, number one, diagnose those obstacles. Number two, keep you on track, and also show you the roadmap of to actually where you can go. Because you may not have that belief that you can achieve this amount in 3 years or in 5 years. But like, even from obviously watching your videos this week and going through the different steps, you can now start to see like why you're such a good coach, because you're showing people, hey, let's create this first. Let's show you the vision. Let's show you the roadmap. And that's so powerful to people, because right now they can't think about the future, or they can't think about this roadmap because they're in this fear. So that's why it's so important to hire a coach like yourself to actually guide and take you there and take you to the next level, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, there's so much information out there. There's a lot of misinformation. I think a lot of people have a scattergun approach when it comes to looking after their health and working on themselves. You know, I still learn from a lot of people that, like Joe Dispenza, you know, I'm still looking for information, but I'm very careful about who I follow. You know, I always encourage people, if you're going to follow someone, look at what they've done, you know, and then stick with them for a while. You know, I've had people that are stuck with me for years because they're plugging into something and plugging into a community as well. Because I like to bring people together where they feel that, you know, was it Jim Rohn, you know, said we are the sum of the 5 people that we spend most of our time with. So most of us need to be around other people who elevate our game, you know, otherwise I was thinking about this. I heard someone talking about failure. You know, most of us don't like failure, but if you think about it, that's why people need trainers, because if you go to the gym and you lift a weight, if you don't take that to failure, what's the point? You know, just going through the motions. You have to take it to failure if you want to improve. And then you eat and you sleep and you do what you need to do so your body regenerates stronger than it was before. But people's natural tendency is to cut corners, to not push themselves. But it's only through the pushing that the growth happens, that little bit of extension. And we are designed to grow until we die. You know, really, we have that capacity to grow and advance, but many of us are not choosing to grow and advance. And when we're choosing not to do that, we are dying. You know, growth, there's nothing tastes better than growth, but getting people into that habit is ultimately where it's at.
Yeah. And I think obviously because how you've layered as well your morning routine, in terms of like with your journaling, with your meditation, with you doing your lives, with you doing your studying, that's all moving you forward towards growth, and it's giving you that massive amounts of momentum, isn't it? And that's why I'm so big with when my clients come in, I'm like, look, we have got to create a powerful movement that can allow us to move forward. So what I mean by that is that we can either do some journaling, which is going to put us in a grateful state, that's going to clear all the shit out of our head, right? And then we can start to move a little bit more. And this will start to change our state, start to change our physiology, so we can start to become who we want to become.
Yeah.
Because if you like what Joe Dispenza says, if you wake up and feel the same and think the same, you're going to get the same shit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you do in your journaling? Is there like is it mainly just a grateful log? Is there anything else that you kind of put in?
Where is my journal? It's over there. Basically, it starts off with gratitude and then victory list. What victories are you looking for? We use something called the Magnificent Seven, which is something that I kind of learned from Dr. Rakowski about: eat right, drink right, think right, talk right, move right, poop or poo right, and talk right, you know. Yeah. And just being able to look at those different things and being able to grade them between 1 and 5. So, you know, if you had like 8.5 hours sleep and you didn't get up, and that would be a 5, right? If you only had a couple of hours, that might be a 1, or no sleep, 0. And then you can start to see all the way around kind of what's going on. So you get a visual representation. I mean, there's obviously now so much technology that people can use to, you know, wearable tech to see what's going on. But yeah, it's kind of like you, I know, massively into tracking. And at the end of the day, you know, what did you learn today? What, you know, making some notes of any observations that you have. And
will you do kind of daily where you're actually tracking, you know, the scoring, they fill that out at the end of the day where they're like, hey, this is what it's been today.
Yeah. And then you can start to see if it's a great little circle around the 4 or 5, then, you know, people are moving themselves in the right direction. But what we're asking people to do is become aware of where there are some gaps, you know, the fact that they didn't move today or they didn't drink any water today, you know, like I can tell that as soon as we finish here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drink some water because I can feel that I'm thirsty, and I could ignore that. But if I ignored it, I will pay the price of it. It might not be now, it might be tomorrow.
100%.
That's that whole thing of living for today, living for tomorrow today. So what am I doing for tomorrow today? You know?
I love that, because that's exactly what I do with my kind of journaling technique, because it gives them awareness, right? First of all, the first step, and then they could take responsibility and actually take a different action. So then they can actually start to get a different result. But until they've got that awareness, they'll just keep doing the same thing. So I really do love that. So obviously, just to wrap up here as well, Pete, because obviously you're producing so much amazing content on LinkedIn, and I encourage everyone to jump over to watch your lives this week. But where can people find you? And obviously, you've got a great podcast as well, I've been listening to. Where can people find you and go and explore your stuff and find out more about what you do?
I would say, you know, podcast, you know, go and check out the podcast. In fact, it's interesting. I did a podcast about Kobe Bryant. I did one about Tyson Fury as well. And both of them came to me in the middle of the night, not literally, but just that whole thing of, I did a podcast. So 10 things I love about Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
And then the one about Kobe Bryant. I mean, I didn't know too much about Kobe, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and find out about him, because obviously this is someone who's impacted the world by who he is as an individual. My podcast, also, if people like reading, they can get a copy of my book, Inspirators. They can get it for free, a PDF, or they can buy a copy for £6. They're just covering the, you know, what the book costs. It's called, and they just go to inspirators.me. That book is really all about being inspired and seeing your life as a movie. Every chapter refers to a different film. In fact, the first chapter refers to Mary Poppins, which most people would think, really? Well, Mary Poppins is fantastic because she is like you and me. We're modern day Mary Poppins. We come into people's lives and we're disrupting shit. We are going to disrupt in a positive way.
Yeah.
Because most of us are under the illusion that everything's okay until things go wrong, which really isn't okay. And then I think the next chapter of the film is The Matrix, right? You know, which most people have seen, is like, which pill do you want? You know, do you want to stay where you are, or you want to take this one? Because if you're going to take this one, it's a journey, and it might not be easy, but it'll be easier with me by your side, right? So
love that.
We know that people don't change when we tell them. Real change happens where you're coached, you're supported, and your perspective ends up changing, and you develop habits that, you know, serve you. So yeah, I would say my book, which is at book.petecohen.com, or listen to my podcast, or reach out to me. But in all honesty, Danny, I'd say, feel free to follow me, but keep following Danny, because what you're doing is awesome. And anyone that gets to work with you is seriously lucky, because you have the experience, but you're also living and breathing. I'm trying to think what the word is. Living and breathing possibility, you know, like pushing the boundaries. What are we capable of? What can we do? I think it's what Abraham Maslow spoke about, you know, a very famous humanistic psychologist, saying what man can be, he must be. We must get to that point of where we realize, we actualize our potential, but then we even go beyond that. You know, we transcend what we even, that's what I think is the ultimate. Kind of like Luke in Star Wars, which is one of my favorite films, you know?
Do you know, I want to say thank you, Pete, because this has been an absolute crack. I knew we was going to get loads of golden nuggets today, and I knew there's going to be loads of content that can actually help people. So I'm totally thankful for this, and thankful for spending some time with me and actually helping both audiences as well.
Fantastic. Take care, and we'll see you soon.